So I'm Gigi Burns. I am a Protective Services Program Manager in San Diego with the Child and Family Wellbeing Program, Office of Safety. I have a program, the ongoing program. So I have the staff that work with families after the children have been removed and there's court involvement. So I have the court intervention team and the continuing services team, the one that works with the families as they reunify. I also am responsible for the clerical team. So lots of lots of stuff going on here. Um, so basically, today's presentation, I'm going to describe a little bit about a transformation that the County of San Diego did about 3 years ago. We used to be called Child Welfare Services. And then we transitioned to Child and Family Wellbeing with the goal of just changing our name and actually just rebranding to be more family centered, focused on the community involvement, and really like empowering families to utilize their natural support systems and the community to help them with functioning and really bridging those linkages. And then our agency actually split into two portions, which is Office of Safety. So if the children are removed or if there's investigations, they're on the Office of Safety side. But if it's not a child abuse issue and it's really just they need connections to the community and they need support, we have a prevention side. And so our goal is if we can get more families to tap into the prevention services before they cross that nexus of it being child abuse, then we don't need to be involved. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'll also just describe what I do within my region and just some of the changes that have happened in the 4 years that I have been a manager from when I started to where I am now, which I believe has helped practice within my program. Let's see. So basically, when we were considering the change, we had to look at the culture and the climate, engaging in partnerships, resources, redefining our infrastructure, and making sure that our staff had the knowledge and skills that they needed in order to actually implement the process appropriately. This entailed doing lots of staff engagement. So we had 15 information gathering sessions where we had staff and managers and executive leadership all meeting together just to get their perspective and ideas of what that transformation will look like going from child welfare services to child and family well-being. We held a variety of work groups within our organization, and we had different programs, different offices, all giving their input on what the changes will look like. Then they had specialty work groups where it was like different offices, like my team would talk about the ongoing aspect and what the ongoing teams would need in order to make this transition successful. And each program brought, their perspective to the table to make sure that everything was captured in a way that as we transitioned, every voice was heard. We also held work groups and meetings within the community just to get the community's input on, moving to a system that focuses on prevention and that really wants to empower the families and make the families the experts of their lives. What would that look like for them? What would they need? And then also tapping into our community um, providers and making sure that they were on board and they understood what the transition was going to look like. Then we had to present it to the Board of Supervisors, and they actually approved it. So in 2023, we were able to transition from child welfare services to child and family well-being. And the goal was really just to focus on our families and prevention. So some of the critical pieces that we believed were important to know was just making sure that we continued our Live Well San Diego vision to improve outcomes for our families and communities, reduce the impact of trauma and adverse childhood experiences, And we've done multiple changes since 1998. We decreased the number of children in care by 64%, almost 7,000 children to just over 2,300 through the family strengthening efforts and enhanced engagement. We've also focused on equity, reducing disproportionality for Native American families, African American families, and our Latinx children. They were overrepresented in our child welfare system. There's also disparities for our LGBTQIA youth and for our fathers. We also introduced the Family First Prevention Services Act comprehensive prevention plan that really helped mold what our prevention team was going to be doing in order to be more focused on prevention and trying to have a no wrong door approach so that families can access support before they needed foster care services or before it led to the children being abused. So if it was something where it didn't quite meet the criteria for abuse or neglect, we would send a referral to our prevention team and try to get a worker to engage the family and connect the family to services and resources so that it wouldn't then result in my program actually having to intervene with the families. So our intended outcomes for the transformation, of course, is increase support for families, promote family strengthening efforts, reduce the impact of trauma and adverse childhood experiences and child maltreatment, and move toward an equitable prevention-focused operating model focused on early intervention. So we have a comprehensive prevention plan to help us with those goals, which is basically reversing the pyramid. So making our foster care system not the largest intervention that we provide, making prevention be the largest intervention that we provide. We also have something called voluntary services. So those are families that they have abuse or neglect, but they recognize that there's abuse or neglect in their family and that they agree that they need some support. So they're willing to engage with our agency and have a case plan and do it without the court involvement. And then, of course, our prevention families. So we do have something called a California Child and Family Services Review process. And every 5 years, we are supposed to create our system improvement plan that basically lines out like areas that we need to focus on over the next 5 years to improve practice. So the process includes a completion of a county self-assessment that includes a peer review, development of a 5-year system improvement plan, and then the submission of annual reports that document our efforts and our progress, and then quarterly monitoring of the system improvement strategies and effects on child welfare outcomes. So we just recently finished our last 5 years, and we're actually in the process right now of creating our new goals for the next 5 years. So our 3 main areas of focus was improve parent-child interactions. So we had visitation to permanency mappings, where we would, if we had a family that was kind of stalled in the reunification process, we would do a mapping to try to figure out what's causing the stall, what supports or services do they need so we can move their case forward, and are there any other resources that the family could benefit from that might help them get over that hump to move the case forward towards reunification. Also, sometimes it's a matter of just working with our staff to remove some of their biases because it's like, I'm worried, I'm worried, I'm worried. But when you break down, well, what exactly are you worried about? They really couldn't provide like a behavior specific, issue or concerns that the parent was demonstrating. So just working with our staff to process those things also. And then strengthening social work engagement practice. So we utilize SOP. I probably should know what SOP. I'm gonna get back to you guys on what SOP is. Coaching and training. We have structured decision making, which is SDM, reunification assessments, tools and integration of, oh my God, let me look up what SOP is, guys. I'm so sorry.
Gigi, typically that means standard operating procedures.
No.
Oh, I'm just
Yeah, no, yeah, no,
I'm
it
just a
doesn't.
reason for in teaching, so.
And this one, I was waiting for one of my peers to send me this information. So I added this slide this morning. Um, uh, let me, if she doesn't respond quickly, I'll move on, but then I'll come back so I can let you guys know what it stands for. And then we also provide training to support our staff, trainings on engagement with families, rapport building and relationship building, and then quality case note documentation. We also focused on increasing prevention services. So we have a prevention hub, we have an increase of availability and access to mental health services, substance abuse services, parenting, and kinship navigation services. And then they're also working on our community response guide. I think the most important part, which is so hard for me because I'm a get things done kind of person, is within our agencies, things are slow and the change happens, but it takes time for you to actually see it. So you really have to, be ready for that journey and, just keep fighting the good fight and keep pushing on. Eventually, the changes that you need to see will happen. But yeah, sometimes it's so hard because you're like, we're still in the same spot. But then a year and a half or 2 years later, you're like, oh, wow, we did make some progress. Um, I'm going to move on, but I'll get back to you guys what SOP means. So as described earlier, we did look at the Family First Prevention Services Act. And so this particular act actually focuses on the prevention side. So it shifts our focus to prevention, prevent the need for families to ever make formal contact with the child welfare agency or juvenile probation system, prevents entry or re-entry into foster care, provides opportunity for jurisdictions to create their own prevention pathways, and then there's funding available for agencies to provide evidence-based practice for eligible candidates. So I know right now we're still in the process of tapping into the federal funds that are connected to the Family First Prevention Services Act. We actually have to change our infrastructure when it comes to our documentation process. So we have our current system, which is CWS, which is how we document our contacts, write our court reports. All of our family information is in that system. We're transitioning to a system called CARES. And so we're all going through trainings and just trying to understand how that transition is going to work. So just pray for us because in October is when they're going to like sundown our current system and they're going to convert over. And then one day we're going to come in and we're going to all be on CARES. But they did say that for 3 weeks or for a month, we'll have access to our current system so that we can verify that the information actually converted over. But I mean, with any system like this, it's huge. It's been a journey and some of the trainings have been delayed. So we're just like, are you sure? Because October is going to be here really fast. So we'll see what happens with that. So, like I said, our system converted to two different programs. Of unfortunately, right now, our prevention side, which is Office of Child and Family Strengthening, the ones in green, it's a little smaller because we're still, transitioning. And we still have quite a few families that are still on the Office of Safety side. So we have the first five San Diego. we have our prevention services, and then we have the child care system. Our agency is just this middle one. The first five, San Diego, and the child care systems, those are already infrastructures that are set up for anybody within San Diego County. They don't have to have an open case, but if they have an open case, there's a pathway to connect them to these services a little bit faster and try to see if just connecting them to those services would reduce the need for our interventions. Then on the safety side, we have the emergency response team. So those are the individuals that do the investigations. Then we have our specialty programs. So that's going to be like our adoptions team, our Indian specialty unit, our our team for the residential services, our team for ICPCs, and also our non-minor dependent. All of our specialty programs fall under there. Then the ongoing teams, that's my group. So that includes all of your court cases, your continuing services cases, and the voluntary program. Then we have our placement and supportive services team. And then we have the youth strengthening and shelter program. So we still have our Polinsky Children's Center. So when kids are first removed, if we cannot find a placement for them, they go to our Polinsky Children's Center. And then we also have our San Pasquale Academy. And that's the location that we, for our kids that are 11 to 18. I do not believe our kids over 18, unless their case is still open, are allowed to stay there, but they're housed there. And it's kind of it's a home type setting, but it's on like a big lot where there's multiple houses. Although they're assigned to one house and one family that takes care of them, it's still not equivalent to being in a foster home, but it's not equivalent to being in a group home. So it's kind of like, I call it like a boarding school is what it seems like to me, but it's been very successful. So that's there. And then practice innovation. So I'm just going to describe a little bit of some of the things that I do within the ongoing program. Do you guys have any questions, or am I okay with going?
So far, there's no questions in the chat, so I'll
Okay.
let you know if there is any.
Okay.
So I am just curious about like the Family First Prevention Act funds. So you guys are just kind of at the point of applying for those now. So my understanding is those are to fund really prevention services to realize the goal of this act, which is to prevent, foster care placements from happening. And so this is
Correct.
like your first application for those funds is in San Diego, is that right?
Yeah, so I believe it's the funds, like we've already, so the funds have been granted,
Good.
but because we don't have the care system, so there's something that's attached to the care system. In order to bill for those services, we have to be active to the care system, because only um, organizations under the care system can bill for those federal dollars. So I don't know how they connected that, because it's been the Prevention Act was signed in 2018. So yeah, so the money's been there, but we've been trying to get our care system set up so that we can draw the funds down. So as soon as we get our care system set up, then we could start drawing the funds down. We're still providing the services, but there's just a pool of extra funding that we'd be able to tap into once we can draw those extra funds down.
Yeah, and I'm curious, I know Beverly on this call and Brianne on this call are both from Child Protective Services. Do you guys know if West Virginia has tapped into the Family First Prevention Services funds for our state? I don't know if you guys have access to that information or no.
We do, and a lot of it is our pregnancy prevention, some of the grants and things that have been done through SAMHSA, some of the wraparound funds, the agreements that we're doing for the CSAD, and those funds have been done through that. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, and the question I had, Gigi, was so given that, and I assume this is true, so just by comparison, I just want to let you know, like West Virginia is a state that has about 1.8 million people
Okay.
in the entire state. And so San Diego, I think the larger metropolitan area is 3 million plus people in the city or metropolitan area. And so it's just interesting. One of the reasons I was excited to have you here is like when you think about the numbers that we're talking about in our entire state versus the state of California or
Right.
your area, this seems like, for West Virginia to have a model there that's more prevention focused
Mhm.
would be great. And we have many fewer numbers than you guys have. So in theory, it might be easier, although there's some challenges around rurality and being in a rural state and systems in some ways being very spread out and communication being more challenging than in a very populous space. So when you think about how it's changed, given that you've seen this implementation, what do you feel like are the biggest differences in how families interact with what was formerly child welfare services, now child and family well-being services?
I would say, I mean, the most important part is the communication piece, and just being able to relate to the families in a way where they feel like they're being heard and that, we're able to connect with them, in a way that they feel like, okay, I can try that. They're more encouraged to engage with the workers. And so a lot of it just talks about like training with the staff, communicating, making sure that, we can think outside the box and that workers are equipped with various types of resources. Because, you walk in and you're like, I came in with this game plan, but once I started talking to this family, everything switched, right? So it's just a matter of being able to go to that toolbox and be prepared to, provide that additional like resource or, that follow up with the family to try to engage them. I think that's one of the most important pieces. And then just communicating with the staff, and then empowering them, like making sure that they understand like the policy, making sure they understand like the data. Like those are the pieces that sometimes if we don't give the workers the why behind everything, when they're out there, they're just out there just making stuff happen. But then you're like, but did you do this? Did you follow up? And so then it's like, oh man, I didn't. So I think a lot of it, and those are things that, we focus on in my program is understanding the data, understanding the policy, understanding what legislation and what gives you the level of authority to go out and execute these particular tasks and what the expectations are of you as a social worker. I think those pieces are crucial. And then always coming in from the giving grace, like life happens to us as workers, right? So it's a matter of if life is happening for us as workers, we know life is happening for these families. So being able to have that grace and have that, ability to, step back and let them live in that moment, as long as the kids are safe. I think that has been the most driving component for my team.
Can I add a question?
Sure.
Hi, Andrea. Um, what is the minimal educational requirement for your workers, and is there title protection in California for social work?
Can you tell me what title protection is? I don't know what.
Meaning that you can't call yourself a social worker unless you're licensed.
No, so we don't have that. So it's a bachelor, so it's a bachelor's degree is the minimal that our workers need to have.
Okay.
But they also, it's part of the minimal qualifications, is they could also equate the years of experience to the bachelor's degree. So it's not mandatory that they have a bachelor's degree if they have years of experience within the field. So if you have a worker who maybe started working at the Polinsky Children's Center and basically has moved their way up the chain, they could convert to a social worker, not necessarily a protective services worker, but they can convert to a social worker and then have years of experience as a social worker and then eventually convert to a protective services worker.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. All right, so then practice innovations are just the things that we're doing within each office or each program to help move the torch. So of course, the most important part is employee engagement. If you have your staff bought into the system and they understand it and they know what's expected of them, they have the materials they need to do their job well, they have opportunities to do what they do best every day, they get recognition and praise, their supervisor cares about them and they actually feel like they care about them, someone that encourages their development. All of these components really help strengthen the staff. One, it helps with retention because we invest a lot in training our staff. And then if they don't stay, then you got to start all over. And it's harder for the families if we don't have a fully engaged team. And then we function off of our key data report, which is we're looking at, there's 8 measures for my program that we consider every single month that workers are supposed to make sure that they get the information entered into the computer system monthly. So we have our child contacts, so that's the contacts with the children in care, the parent contacts, making sure that our kids' medical and dental exams are documented, making sure that staff are completing the structured decision-making risk assessment or reunification assessment. Risk assessments are done for your family maintenance cases. Reunification assessments are done for your families that are in reunification. Completing the mental health assessments are our CANs, creating case plans, trying to have children placed with relatives or in familiar environments, and then completing child and family team meetings regularly. So for my team, when I first came on board, my team was struggling with their parent contacts, their case plans, and most of their data. And in the 4 years, it looks like it's been 3 years, but 3 years and 5 months, we were able to actually move all of the dials upward, and we're getting close to 3 of them. So we haven't quite met all the measures yet, but we have been able to move the dial forward. And a lot of it is just, we talk about it monthly. We do what we call back to basics trainings, where we're talking about just the different things that the staff need to know in order to help them complete each of the tasks in a timely fashion. And then we also have different checklists and timelines, and then using our Outlook calendars to set up like reminders of making sure that things are entered, within a timely fashion. And I just call it drop dead date. So it's like, if you haven't done it yet, it has to be done on this day so that when the measures are pulled, you're not going to be on the list, is what they call it. And then just having staff understand that data and policy-driven practice enhances our decision-making. Staff are independently able to use the measures and policy tech to help them when they're making decisions. It helps us ensure that children are thriving. It also improves outcomes for the children, youth, and families, but it also improves employee retention. It builds the workers' confidence and their skills base by them knowing this information. And then our agency as a whole has different values and guiding principles and frameworks that we use just to help us with our engagement. So we have safety enhanced together, and that has 6 different values. Set value 1 is relationship with children, youth, and families are the foundation. Set value 2, collaborating with partnerships with kinship and resource families. Set value 3, helping children and youth achieve their full potential and develop lifelong relationships. 4, having a shared responsibility with community partners. 5, a strong working relationship with the legal system. And 6, a workplace culture that's characterized by reflection, appreciation, and ongoing learning. Then we have our guiding principles. And it's a vision for us to be sustainable and resilient for all. We have be bold, be kind, be curious, and do the right thing. For be kind, assume positive intent, think before responding. Be curious, ask questions, listen deeply. Be bold, take measured risk, but using the different frameworks and risk assessment tools to make sure you're not a liability. And then doing the right thing, working for the whole, actively discussing what's right. Because, sometimes you go into court and everybody's on their own agenda, and you got to go in and advocate for getting those kids returned home, or helping everybody understand that life happened for this parent. Although the progress in the case plan may not have been as high as we wanted, that relationship and that parent's ability to be safe has been sustained. So returning home and continuing to work on the risk factors is appropriate and the least restrictive intervention for the kids. And sometimes that's a journey, trying to get everybody on board with your recommendations. And then we have tapped into having lived experience engagement framework. So with some of our community partners, they have parents who have successfully reunified with their kids who come back and get employed as a parent partner. And then we connect our new families with a parent partner who can just better help them understand like the system and how to navigate the system, and just how to empower the families to, it's okay to, advocate for yourself, but, advocate in a way where we can hear you. And it's not, aggressive, or you're not threatening, or, things of that nature. And then just promoting that community partnership. And I had a worker who had a parent who had came back to be a parent partner, and they were so excited because my worker had made a referral and they got connected. So they were able to just discuss just the changes that that particular parent remembers making from that relationship with that social worker. And then we have a racial equity framework, so acknowledging the harm that has been caused to families and communities, acknowledging the social construct of race and the effects of racism that results in oppression and marginalization of groups, adopting and applying an anti-racist approach through examining different forms of oppression, being committed to partnering with families and parents and youth from communities that have experienced the most harm, and then commit to collecting qualitative and quantitative data. The other component is like trying to make sure we support families. So within my program, I also have the social worker ones who facilitate parent-child visitation. So allowing parents and children to visit at church, or, practice some of their cultural beliefs during the visit session. Like those pieces my team has been able to do, and the families, it's just helped the families just maintain a sense of normalcy during this process. And so our goal is to continue integrating the Child and Family Services system. We have trainings for staff, consolidating collaborative meetings. We also have community networking. So like my team has a partnership with our KC Family Program. And so once a month, we have a meeting that the families that we share in common, we talk about, how they're doing, the progress they're making, if they're stalled. We have conversations about, what's the stall, what's causing some of the barriers, and how can we as a group, support the families a little bit more. And in the 4 years that I've been on board, I believe that we've helped about 90 families. 30 of them have successfully reunified just within the KC Family Program. And the cool thing about the Casey family is once you're connected to Casey, you're always connected to Casey. So if the family ends up having some issues after their case is closed, they can reach back out to Casey and get those community supports and never ever have to interface with our agency again, just to get that resource. And that's it.